fight you. Don't think I'll lay down. Don't think I won't punch you right to the ground. No, wow, 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 wow. I will never rest until you pay. My fists are gonna put you in a world of pain. Stay away from my hand.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Brazilian Dragon podcast for Scooby Snacks and Chats here on the Brazilian Dragontober. It's spooky season. My name is Felipe, and I am obsessed with Stay Away From My Man Homewrecker, the song by Chrissy from Scooby-Doo Stage Fright, which is what we're talking about today. I am the Brazilian Dragon, and with me today is the Portuguese dinosaur. It is Matt Pinkney. Matt, how are you?
Hey, how you doing, Felipe?
Good, welcome back. You recognize Matt from his appearance on the Brazilian Dragon podcast talking about Scooby-Doo, Music of the Vampire, but he is also the co-host and founder of You Haven't Seen This, a podcast with his sister where they talked most recently, at least as of time of recording, of Superman and Yes Mama, as your sister said, about so much. And yes, mama, to this movie, because I had a blast. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing great. You know, always good to be expanding my horizons, and a lot of times that's watching a Scooby-Doo. So,
Had you seen this one before?
No, I had literally never heard of this.
And was your life changed for the better, having watched it?
It was certainly changed.
I gave this a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I loved it.
But
to be fair, I also give the most cracked Scooby-Doo thing I've ever seen, which is the puppet one. Are you familiar with the puppet one, Matt?
The what one?
The Scooby-Doo Adventures, the Mystery Map. I gave that a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, but not because it was good, because it was cracked. Maybe Matt will go and watch this. That should be your next podcast with your sister.
Oh, God. I can't complain, you know. I also watch insane stuff, so.
Yes, I mean, I remember one of the first days I was with you at work, and we went around the room. Do you want to share this story? Can I dox you?
Yes, okay. So our orientation at work, we're all going around, and it's like every orientation, say your name, a fun fact about you. Our fun fact was like, what's your favorite movie? And everyone was saying, you know, normal, whatever you think of as favorite movies. And I was sitting there, I was kind of at the end, I'm like, do I actually try and say one of my favorite ones? Is everyone going to clown me when I'm like, I love Disney's Beauty and the Beast. It like means so much to me. Do I try and say something like, do I try and impress people? And my brain decided, take the path of least resistance. Say a movie that you love, not because it's good, but will just tell people everything they need to know about you. And so I said, it's a bad movie and I recognize it, but I do love Cats 2019.
And we love you for it because you were the only one brave enough to say it, even though you were not the only one who felt that way.
No.
Yeah. So first of all, what is You Haven't Seen This for the people who are unfamiliar? And first of all, listeners, we appreciate you checking out the Brazilian Dragon podcast, but you should have done your research on Matt.
Oh, you are so sweet. Yeah. So You Haven't Seen This is a podcast. Me and my sister Cassie take it in turns. We go through movies that we each watch movies that one of us has never seen before and the other one loves and is an important part of our childhood or film history in general. And movies that when you hear someone hasn't seen this, your response is, you haven't seen this?
Like Barbie and the Adventures of the Nutcracker or whatever.
Excuse you, Barbie and the Island Princess.
Sorry, Cinderella 3, A Stitch in Time.
Which, the Barbie one was for a long time one of our most listened to episodes, which is always funny to me.
We love that. We love that.
We've covered, a lot of childhood classics, Barbie, Disney sequels, but also a lot of classic films, Star Wars, To Kill a Mockingbird, Dead Poet Society, and we were on a bit of a hiatus for a while, an unplanned 2-year hiatus.
Yeah.
But like Felipe said, we just came back for our 3rd season. At time of recording, we just did our episode on Superman 1978.
And ladies and gentlemen and non-binaries, we love Christopher Reeve in this house, but I don't think anyone can love Christopher Reeve more than the college girlies at Chapman University.
No, yes. Listen if you too want to be indoctrinated into the cult of Clark Kent.
We love it. I will say, listen, as a fan of both you and your sister's work, I feel like Margot Kinner, is that her name? I felt like she was under-discussed.
Yeah, well, I let Cassie lead that discussion.
I felt like she's a great Lois Lane. But she was my favorite part of the original Superman movies. And then, are you going to do Superman 2? I assume you are.
Possibly. Well, I have no idea.
Yes.
We take it year by year. I can confidently tell you, as of time of recording, that is not the next episode coming.
Okay, we love that. Now, have you ever discussed the Scooby-Doo movie on that podcast? Obviously, you've been here on the Scooby Snacks and Chats feed before, but would you ever discuss this movie with your sister?
Ooh, this one in particular. We have not yet done a Scooby-Doo episode. I think I'm trying to think if there is one that we haven't.
Have y'all seen the original live actions?
That's the thing. I definitely have. I don't know. I'll have to ask if Cassie has seen that one. This is the hard part of this podcast as we're continuing, which is why we are opening it up. We're going to be having some guests on this season and going forward, because we've hit a point now where it's like, oh, all the like big movies either we've both seen or neither of us have seen and don't really want to. So
yeah,
it's hard to do for episodes, but I don't think we've done. I don't know if Cassie has seen the original live action Scooby-Doo. I know we haven't. That might be one we have to do. I know we haven't seen a lot of the animated ones.
Valid. That's what I'm here for. But
Yes.
if she has not seen the live action Scooby-Doo, the original one, we need to rectify that immediately, because that is cinema.
Halloween's coming up.
Yes, it is almost spooky season. So that is also something that I want to discuss, because this is for our big Brazilian Dragontober activities. What is your take on Halloween? And do you have your 2024 Halloween costume ready to go?
I do not have my costume ready yet. I am not one of those people who like gets who starts planning the Halloween costume November 1st.
No, those are wild people.
Girl, I have the time. I have to be like, am I working on Halloween? Like, what is this? That's the problem.
That do be true.
That's the problem with being an adult. You don't get to like go trick or treating anymore. You got to
see
be
what
like,
day of the. It's a Thursday this year, so that is my Friday. We love to see that.
Ew.
A Thursday Halloween.
Yeah, half the time. Well, now half the time Thursday is my Monday. So,
Ooh. I mean, just trade shifts with someone.
So I have had an ever evolving relationship with Halloween. I was a real scaredy kid, a real kind of scaredy cat kid. So Halloween was never like my holiday growing up. But as I have grown up, I've started to like it more, and I've realized that like when I can choose my Halloween, when I can err to the spooky side of things and avoid the scary as much as possible, I really enjoy it. And also I view the Halloween season as just kind of an extended fall season. I'm a very hard line, like no Christmas music or anything until, after Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, we'll start having the pumpkin stuff, September 1st if I can get it. It's my birthday. I love having a pumpkin pie on my birthday.
Yes. Did you have pumpkin pie on Tuesday for Rebecca's birthday?
I did.
Did you have a pumpkin pie on your birthday last week?
I had it on my birthday, and yeah, one of our coworkers also brought it in for her birthday. And it's
do all Virgos love pumpkin pie?
Who knows? Science hasn't decided yet.
Yes. Okay. Do you have contenders for your Halloween costume? Like any nuggets in there so far?
I legitimately have. This is the first time you saying that is the first time I've been like, oh yeah, it's coming up. I should think about it.
All right. Next question. Any favorite candies or treats for Halloween? Like, what is your go-to?
So I love me anything pumpkin. In terms of specifically Halloween, now I'm gonna preface it because this is gonna be a controversial take. I love me a candy corn.
Ooh.
A lot of people really
I
hate
see the
it.
vision. Listen, I thought you could be like my friend AJ who says Twizzlers, and I was like, ew, get out of here.
I also don't hit a Twizzler. Now, here's also the thing. Part of why I like candy corn is if I'm thinking Halloween candy, like
It's very Halloween.
candy corns get me in the mood. Like people who are like, oh, I love Snickers. It's like, cool. I can go 365 days a year to the gas station and get me a Snickers bar if I want it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of the other like really good candies, your Reese's, your Kit Kats, you know, Twix.
You're
whatever.
versatile.
Yeah, it's like I can get those, you know, year round. When it's Halloween, I want me some Halloween stuff. I want me some weird pumpkin flavored things.
I love a pumpkin Reese's.
The pumpkin Reese's are fun. So you
and
say
then
Reese's? Sorry, that's so weird to me when I hear people say it.
I say Reese's or Reese's. What did you say? What do you say?
It's Reese's. It's not.
Oh, I say Reese's. Whoops.
Oh well. Who cares?
In terms of activities, any favorite traditional? And I like Halloween because it's kind of like I like the holidays and the demarcation of the holidays because it is kind of like reminiscent of childhood. It's like, oh, these 3 months, it's for adults to be kids, but now that we're adults, we have our own adult swing on it. And I was telling AJ this. Spoiler alert, the AJ podcast is gonna be released after this one. So I'm trying not to say things that I said time travel too much on the podcast. But basically it was like, oh, so it takes you back to childhood because you get to play, dress up, and play, and like it's very nostalgia based and nostalgia heavy. But then you can mix it with things that you enjoy as an adult, like alcohol or being sexy or sexuality for Halloween costumes. And I don't know, like you make it fun and like make it more adult themed. So it's like the best of childhood meets the best of adulthood. And I was a big, long-time Halloween hater for a while. But I'm trying to lean into the positivity. So any activities that scream Halloween for you?
Scream Halloween. I mean, love a party. You gotta always love a Halloween party. And it's like, if we're doing a Halloween party, I want there to be candy. I want there to be some pumpkin stuff. Jack-o'-lantern carving or painting.
Yeah. Oh, we should align for if they do one for work.
Mm-hmm.
We should work on one together. Or unless you want all the glory.
I also no, I'm not that good. Are you kidding? I also love, you know, it starts getting colder, so this is where you start to get into baking.
Ooh.
Things.
Are you a big baker?
I dabble. I'm not. It's not like my number one thing. Because if I bake too much, I eat too much sugar. Is my problem.
I am trying to be better at baking. I'm very good at getting baked. But I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to improve my skills in the kitchen, like cooking in general. But maybe like I'll try baking. But like you said, then I want to eat a lot more.
I love, especially for Halloween. I love, you know, put on like a Hocus Pocus or something like that.
I was gonna ask movies and TV
and do
episodes
M&M
next.
Cookies. That's me. That's me.
And which cookies?
M&M cookies.
Okay.
That to me is like it's a very like, yeah, I can have a chocolate chip cookie whenever. I want that M&M cookie.
Yes.
I want that.
I love a good Pillsbury shape, like with the pumpkins on them.
Those two are so good, and they start coming out around Halloween, which is always good.
Yes. Besides Hocus Pocus, any other favorite movies or TV or music, Halloween media?
That's a good one. I don't have too many favorites. This year I've said it the past couple of years, but this year I do want to try to watch like a couple more horror movies. I'm a big boy now. But obviously, I mean, I'm on this podcast. But when I have a very distinct memory when I was back living with my parents during COVID, that first Halloween, I was like, I had the day off work or whatever, and I was like, okay, whatever, chill. And I was just like, we have like Boomerang, we have the old cartoons. they're doing Scooby-Doo. It's Halloween. Throw that on. I want to see that.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, I'm not a
what
big horror movie fan either, so I get it. I am trying to expand my palette, but it's also like I have too much anxiety already.
Really?
But I do love a campy Halloween movie. I feel like, I loved the new Beetlejuice. Did you like it or did you prefer the original?
I really liked it. I thought both were good. Do I think the original is better? Yes, just it can be its own thing. But I thought this was actually, really good.
It was giving adult Disney Channel original movie.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I say, I like a spooky over a scary. And that's kind of thing, the camp element of it.
Yeah.
It can be scary. It can be a horror, but it's like, look, Halloween is at its core like a silly holiday.
It's so silly.
We dress up in, crazy costumes and we go door to door asking people, for candy.
Yes.
We as a threat, it's, trick or treat. And it's like, what are you going to do if I don't give you candy?
What is your most niche Halloween costume you've ever been? Because I can tell you mine, and I feel like you're one of the few people who will appreciate this in 2024. But you go first.
I mean, honestly, it was probably a couple years ago when I had an outfit that kind of pieced together a couple things, and the outfit accidentally resembles like a train conductor. And I was like, I had a party, I was like, screw it. Threw on a little cat nose, and I was Skimbleshanks, the railway cat. That maybe is my most niche one.
Valid. In 6th grade, I was Joe the Plumber. Do you remember that? Joe the Plumber?
No.
Feel free to Wikipedia this. It was a political thing. It was like an 11-year-old dressed as Joe the Plumber. Matt's going to pull out the Wikipedia. That was very niche. I just didn't know what I wanted to be, and I remember that was like topical. This year, I'm considering being one of the Challengers boys because we love bisexual tennis.
True.
And I feel like that's gonna be a popular costume. I think the ray gun. I think the French pole vaulter. I think these are some popular costumes we'll see this year.
Wow, I would not have expected 11-year-old Felipe to be your Halloween costume to be fully like a 2008 politics meme. What?
Yes. I couldn't tell you.
Also,
I remember
last year.
Yeah.
Halloween.
Yeah. I mean, that is a spooky time of year because the next week is gonna be stressful, but
we don't have to get into that.
yes.
This is a media podcast. It's fine.
Yes.
As a slight transition, I'll say probably the outfit I have been the most is on my chest.
The Phantom of the Opera.
I do have a Phantom mask, and dressing up nice and putting that mask on is a very easy, low-effort costume.
Now, which Phantom of the Opera are you? Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5? Because there were 5 Phantoms of the Opera in this freaking movie.
My God. I'm number 6.
Yeah.
Jeez.
I did, when I pitched this to you, you said, oh, this thing has Phantom of the Opera in it. I'm down.
Yeah, so you pitched me, you were like, hey, do you want to come on the podcast? I'm like, totally. He's like, cool. Here's all the ones I haven't done. What are the, which one do you want? And of course, I see the name Stage Fright. And I'm like, I'm a theater kid. We'll start the research on that. And I see a creepy looking guy in a weird mask. And I'm like, is this some kind of Phantom of the Opera? Look at the plot 2 seconds. I'm like, I think this is a Phantom of the Opera. And then I watched it. And it was much less of a Phantom of the Opera than I was hoping for.
Hey, but it was a good time. I think it was a good time. Did you not have a good time?
I enjoyed it.
Listen, I've done through some rough Scooby-Doo movies over the last few years, so I had a good time with this one.
Scooby-Doo movies are never like, I never walk into any of these with like expectations that this is like high art. So I'm not like disappointed. I do have thoughts. I obviously have thoughts.
Yes.
But overall, I had fun.
Was the last time you consumed a Scooby-Doo product the last time you were on this podcast?
No, it couldn't have been. I'm sure something Scooby-Doo was on at
In the
work,
break room?
the break room at work. Or if it was before last October, usually I walk in sometime during the month of October on my roommate who has decided to binge like one of the Scooby-Doo series. And so I see a bit.
The
So
taste.
can't have been. I think the podcast was the last time I sat down and watched something intentionally Scooby-Doo.
I love that. So, do you have any overall takes from this movie before we get into like the plot? Like, what were your overall perceptions of it? What did you enjoy? What was like a struggle for you, if any? Anything like over big picture that you want to discuss?
I liked the vibes. I thought it was fun. I did think Music of the Vampire, I think, is a better movie. The last one we watched.
Probably. I think this was like a good. This could have been condensed into like a 45-minute movie.
Yeah, it felt a little overly complicated.
The third act did drag a little bit, I will say.
Yeah, it felt a little overly complicated. It felt there were too many moving parts. And I also, look, I'm not a purist. I knew, like, as soon as it was, like, slightly different, I'm like, okay, yeah, it's a Scooby-Doo movie, and it's just using the vibes. But I was kind of left disappointed, because in thinking more about it, I think, like, a Scooby-Doo adaptation of Phantom of the Opera could have been really cool. Like, actually kind of a straightforward adaptation of the book could have been really cool. And so whenever they were, like, alluding to the story, but we're not actually going to do it, I was like, but if you just did it, it would maybe be a better movie.
I love that this combined two of our biggest loves. For you, Phantom of the Opera, and for me, reality television.
Truly. This is like the platonic ideal of a Scooby-Doo movie for us.
Agreed. Yeah, I thought, I mean, obviously I'm obsessed with the song Stay Away From My Man, You Homewrecker. I thought the concept of like a talent show was very fun. I thought the score and the animation were both solid compared to like some other Scooby-Doo movies where I felt like they are underserved. The animation actually for Scooby-Doo is always pretty on par with this, but I really liked this. I had a great time. I do think it was overstuffed. I think I like the twist with and we'll talk about it more in depth, but Steve Trilby being the Phantom and then having a second one. But then when we got to the like third, fourth, and fifth one, I wish we like, because it was just red herrings, like Mel, the insurance guy, and then also Chrissy's dad. I was like, we didn't really need this. We could have just stuck with Dewey and Brick being the Phantom at the end.
Yeah. And like that's such an obvious Scooby-Doo plot anyway. Of, there's rumors of a ghost, so I'm gonna dress up as that ghost to like involve it. It felt too obvious.
Yeah.
Maybe that was the thing. Maybe they felt it was too obvious to do that once or even twice. So they're like, let's have it be 27.
I was surprised that every single person that wasn't the main mystery machine, and like maybe Emma, the little girl at the end, wasn't the Phantom.
I'm surprised Chrissy wasn't a Phantom. Come on,
right? I also felt like they set up so many different character plot lines that didn't come through, like Lotto, who was like the Yzma-looking girl.
Yes. What was with the ventriloquist and the punk act?
Yeah. I'll listen. As characters, I like the fact that they were expanding the talent show and making it its own realistic thing. Because sometimes with the Scooby-Doo movies, I found that the cast is so small that it doesn't really feel like a real world. I felt like this was built out, like the world building was really cool for this because they like invested time in characters. But was it silly nonsense? Yes. Was it necessary? No, especially because they weren't really like ever came back. Once they like left, their instruments broke and the guy caught on fire. They just like left for the movie, and I wish they would have tied it together cohesively more.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like rule of threes right there. Okay, we got like 2 scenes with each of these other people,
and
it's like get a third one to kind of wrap it up, give a beginning, middle, end of this.
No, I'm with you.
Like if the ventriloquist and the like one of the punk girls had shown up and they were a date to the finale. Like that would have been fun and cute.
That would have been fun. I agree with you wholeheartedly. I did think there were some fun Easter eggs in this one. Like when they were driving to Chicago, the books are all different locations they had recently been to, like Mexico City and La Serena, and they had like books calling back to the recent movies. I thought the Fred and Daphne subplot of like, oh, I actually like him. I was like, girl, we've been new. Like, obviously, Velma was an asshole, and we can talk about that later. But I was like, we're waiting. So yesterday was the 55-year anniversary day of recording of Scooby-Doo, Where Are You? We have been with this Will They, Won't They for 40 years prior at the release of this movie. Why are we all of a sudden trying to make it a big thing?
Yeah,
Like,
it is very all out of nowhere. It's like Daphne's motivation is she's into Fred, and it's like that's kind of always been her motivation. What is this?
And it's also like, we've been new. Like, I like the fact that it's kind of an open secret. I also assumed they were fanoodling throughout the whole series.
Yeah, that's the problem with this franchise, because it is so like has no sense of time intentionally. Like that's not a criticism.
It's very multiverse. Like everything seems different in a different outing with the Scooby-Doo characters. Like there's like multiple universes, and like in some they're an established couple, and others they're not. And like there's always like random subplots that we don't know. Like some of them have monsters, some of them have just like science behind the monsters.
Yeah, but then it does you get to things where it is like, okay, the plot is like we're gonna maybe make them a couple, and that's fine in the logic of this because they're not already. But like Fred and Daphne have been a couple, multiple times throughout the series, throughout other movies, and like have been a pair since the 60s, and we're like, really, what's going on?
Yeah. Anything else you want to add in terms of big picture, or do you want to get into like the kind
I
of?
think we're already knee deep in the plot, so let's just
okay. Basically, they go to Chicago because Fred and Daphne are competing in the Talent Star competition show. They meet Brick Pimiento, who is the host. They meet the poor PA who's getting trapped.
Justice for her. I don't even think she has a name. Justice for that PA.
We meet the security guard because we find out that Dewey, who's I assume the like producer, Dewey Ottoman, he hates dogs. So we find that out. And that's kind of like the setup. And then we do like mic tests, basically, like camera tests, rehearsals, all that jazz. We find out about the Phantom of the Opera, who incites his first attack during hotel check-in, where we also meet Chrissy and her parents, Emma and her parents. So we meet the Girlosaurus Rex punk band and the Houdini guy.
Well, no, his first, the Phantom's first attack is at like the rehearsals, the mic check, which is very. This has already got my hopes up because that is so Phantom of the Opera. It's like, okay, we're backstage, we're rehearsing for the thing, and then oh no, something's crazy, and that is also just like the perfect hook. It's like, all right, you take that already established beat, and then you just throw a detective in there, you throw the Mystery Gang in there, and it's like, all right, here we go. Like we should be off to the races,
and the venue is a mix between a hotel and an opera house, like, which is kind of weird because it's also where they sleep, right?
I think they're supposed to be different. Then it is confusing because, the next time the Phantom appears, it's not in the opera house. It's at their hotel. I think they're different. I'm pretty sure they're different buildings.
They're neighboring buildings, maybe?
Yeah, they're right next to each other. Also, it is weird. The setup is weird that, okay, this reality show, the American Idol finale is taking place in an opera house that later on they say it's like, no one's been using this since the 70s. And it's modern day, like the mid 2000s.
Not just an opera house. It is an rundown opera house that became a rundown disco.
Yes, which is why it became rundown. But it's like, wait, so why now are we doing this?
So this movie came out August 20th, 2013. So this is like, let's say early 2010s. And I'm like, because I did notice they were like using Giggle, which is a great example of Greeking. And I'm going to start using that when I discuss Greeking. Giggle and Scooby-Doo Stage Fright. And if you want to hear more about it, listen to my podcast. But it's just like weird. Are you an opera guy? Have you ever been to the opera?
I actually have been to the opera. There were a couple. There was like one or two outings. Weirdly, when I was in like second grade, where we went
Okay.
to
I'm
like the opera. I've been there like a handful of times. It's not something I go to on the regular.
the opera house in Croatia. There's a scene in Prague, sorry, in Czechia, is one of my favorite subplots of the Spider-Man franchise when they go to the opera house because he has to go fight the elementals in Spider-Man Far From Home. And then he's a night monkey or whatever, and then Betty and Ned go. You haven't seen Far From Home?
I have not seen Far From Home.
Cassie, get on this.
Girl, the way I dropped, I was talking about this with other people earlier today. It's like the way I dropped out of the MCU after Endgame.
But the Spider-Man movies are bussin'.
Yeah, whatever. This
You
is
just have two Spider-Man
Spider-Man podcast.
Okay.
This is Scooby-Doo podcast.
Well, we go, so we meet them. Okay, just based on like early thinkings, I'm like, it has to be Emma's parents because they're the ones who like seem the nicest that have the motive because they're like, oh, if Emma loses this, we're gonna lose our farm. And I was like, oh, that made my alarm bell go off. We also see that we meet Mel Richmond, who was very much a red herring also, right? Because he is one of the Phantoms later, but he literally makes a joke about insurance and tells the backstory about the 35 years ago. This used to be a disco.
He's like the most obvious one you expect to be the Phantom. I think that also is one criticism of this because there are spoilers. Ultimately, it's revealed like 4 different people are using the legend.
At least 5, yeah.
I think 4 different people are using the legend. Well, there's the one who actually.
Oh, there's the OG, yeah.
And then there's 4 other characters we meet are using the like urban legend of the Phantom to like for their own gain. So because of that, it's like everyone has a different reason for doing it. Therefore, like you can't ever really pick who's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's the thing. It's like, okay, it would immediately kind of make sense. And it'd be an interesting spin for Emma to be the one, for Emma's parents who.
I thought, yeah.
Eventually.
But she's too likable, so.
I'll take over a little bit with the plot stuff. It's like eventually they get to the finale and it's between Fred and Daphne.
We will be discussing this point later too.
Yeah,
so
Fred and Daphne, Chrissy, who sings the song that we opened the episode with, and Emma, who's like this very nice, sweet girl who like plays the violin. And it would be a fun inversion if, Emma is the if it's Emma's parents or like the Phantom trying to get her to win. But the first thing that opens is like the Phantom saying, no, Christine must win. Chrissy, which is her actual name, which, sorry, my nerd is going off here because like Chrissy is not the Christine of this. There really isn't a Christine because like all of the girls are like small children, so you can't have someone a Phantom to be obsessed with. But in terms of like the nice, talented one, that's Emma. She's even a violinist, and Christine's father was a violin player. And I was like, okay, that's a weird choice to have your Christine not be named Christine and to have a character who is named Christine, who is like, if anything, I was like, okay, that's weird. She's the Carlotta of this, the like brash, I'm better than everyone, singer that everyone kind of hates. But then later in the second act, we introduce a character named Lotta, who is also that. And I'm like, wait, so now there's 2 Carlottas and there's no Christine? What is this?
Yeah. I feel like this could potentially kill our friendship, but I have never seen, read, watched The Phantom of the Opera.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
But it's not a thing.
Maybe we should do a book club, l'Opera de la Fantôme, or whatever, the Latin version. And so, yeah, and we'll talk more about the inversion that they could have done at the end with like Daphne Blake and Fred Jones winning the competition. I had just wished that they just gave it to Emma at the end anyways, but we'll talk about that later. But it was interesting to like find out from you that there's more subtext to like the character names with like the analogy to the Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah, and it's also weird that it's like those are the two references. Like there's no one is named Eric or Raoul or, you know, Meg or, you know, there's no Persian if we're going for the book. There's no, you know, anything.
And the buck stops there. But yeah, it also felt like, just to go back to your earlier statement about how Mel Richmond was such an obvious red herring, the parents of Chrissy were also such obvious red herrings. So then the fact that they did one Mel, one her dad, it's just like, okay, this feels like you're just going to swing so you can try to, I don't know. There's obviously like plot holes and criticisms we can find. That said, I refuse to take away the enjoyment that past me had watching this movie, because the second act of this movie legitimately made me feel like I was a kid at times. Like I felt like, oh, because I hadn't seen this one before. So I felt like in excitement, like I was like vibing with this movie to an extent that I hadn't vibed with a Scooby-Doo movie in a while, besides the puppet one, which was just crack.
Not the puppets.
Not the puppets. It's so fucking good. Like in a bad way. It's so bad it's good. But like, so next up, like I just got so excited because just Scooby and Shaggy going to, and maybe I was a little hungry, and so the pizza also like looked appetizing. First of all, what is your kind of favorite kind of pizza? Are you a basic cheese boy? I mean, we've shared a pizza before.
You cannot mess up a pizza in my eyes. I mean, there are things I don't know.
You can, but okay.
You can't, but it's what you put on the pizza. You got to try to put.
So, not to keep going back to the puppet one, but at the start of that one, Scooby and Shaggy eat a pickle, peanut butter, and cheese pizza.
Okay, that's insane. No, I love a pepperoni. I love sausage. I love, you know, throw some mushrooms, some olives on it, throw just all sorts of good stuff.
Do you F with pineapple on pizza?
No, but I don't mess with pineapple in general, so that's why.
SpongeBob's house is safe for another day.
Yes, I'm not a pineapple person, so it's like I don't like it not on my pizza, so I
Valid.
put it in my pizza.
Yes.
Speaking of the pizza though, hi. If you're gonna spend so much time making it very clear in the opening that this is in Chicago, why was that not a deep dish pizza?
Well, because they needed it to be like fit the. Oh, how do they? What kind of oven do they put that in? Is it one of those like long ovens that you just like feed it, since it's like a long little thing? You just like feed it to the tube because it's so big. Like it has to be one of those long big ovens, like
maybe
that has the conveyor belt on it.
Maybe, but I'm like, girl, the theme of this movie for me, the word of the day for this movie category is missed opportunities. I'm like,
no, I did think of that too.
We're going to a pizza place, and you're not even gonna try to make it look like a deep dish pizza.
You made very good points right there.
This isn't even like I love deep dish pizza. I wish it would have been. It's like you're in Chicago.
Bitch, don't mess with me. I'm from Chicago.
What? It's
shout out to Dulce Sloan. One of my favorite stand-up comedian bits is a Chicago bitch. Cheese pizza can never go wrong. Pepperoni can never go wrong. I like Hawaiian. But I am a little bit more. I love a good like sweet and savory. I don't know about you, but I love a good sweet and savory. I just love pizza. Pizza's so good. I am craving pizza right now. I'm like, what do I do for dinner? Do I get Thai food or do I get pizza?
Real talk. I think I'm gonna go get pizza after this.
Should we go get pizza together? But Lotto shows up, and then with her gigantic nails,
love those. Love
scratches her name into Scooby and Shaggy.
They are the nails you can only have in animation, because they are a good, if like this is my finger, they're a good like this long.
Yeah.
They're my favorite kind of nails I see people have, where it is like, that is like, that crosses from impractical into camp at that point.
Yes, but it would stress me out, because I'm like, what if that breaks? That would be so painful.
Yeah, but that's why you become a little diva who does everything yourself.
Valid. So we also get this not subplot, this like detail about the Phantom smelling like lemons at a certain point, which will come back later. We also established that Dewey Ottoman has OCD. Let's just call it spade a spade.
Oh yeah.
And because they don't actually, I appreciate the fact that they don't like make jokes about it. They're just like, oh, he likes things clean. It calms his anxiety. They just kind of like let him be a character. But like, if you have had conversations or are like me and have diagnosed OCD, you're like, oh, I see you. You are my people in this moment, but not as a criminal. Like, and he should have thought better because those prison showers must not be sanitary for him to his standards.
Girl.
So don't be a thief out here.
Truly.
Anything you want to say about like I'll call them the like extras, like anyone who isn't Emma, Chrissy, or the main five that we haven't talked about so far.
The also-rans, yes. I don't know. They were all just such non-starters.
Did you recognize the voice for Brick Pimiento or Lotta Lavoie?
No, not at all.
Okay, so Vivica A. Fox was the voice of Lotta.
Love.
And Wayne Brady as Brick Pimiento.
Wait, that was him! That's wild.
And we also had John O'Hurley, who used to host Family Feud, as the great Paul Dini.
I thought that was him. I thought it was John O'Hurley. But I think I missed the name in the credits. I love that.
Yeah, Scooby-Doo is always kind of like a who's who. Mark Hamill's been in Scooby-Doo. Like,
oh, yeah. Well, Mark Hamill's been in everything. So.
Yes. So we end up going to the hotel at night, and Daphne's like, Velma, I have a secret. I love Fred. I wrote lyrics to the song that he wrote.
Yes.
And
also, I love, is this like the first time where it's been established either of them are like particularly musical?
I mean, Daphne was singing in the Vampire one we watched, right?
Well, everyone was singing in the Vampire
Okay,
one.
valid.
It was a musical. That doesn't count.
Transparently, homeboy, I've watched so many of these. I don't remember all of them.
That's totally fine. You're so fine.
It was one of the first times that I felt like we had overt confirmation that they like each other versus like the passive aggressive, like in Zombie Island, where Daphne is like flirting with the landskeeper and Fred is flirting with one of the cat ladies who ends up being the villain. And they're obviously jealous of each other. But this was like the first time I can recognize like overt confirmation for an open secret.
You're right. But usually it is, they are like, usually they get paired together because like he's the normal guy and she's the normal girl, usually. And so it's like, well, they're the hot ones, so they're going to go together.
Are they the most famous pop culture?
Because they are the other ones.
Or the weirdos.
Helpful, which is like, those two don't mesh.
Also, Velma's a lesbian and we don't talk about it enough. Like, is Fred and Velma the biggest example of a platonic, like, a couple that is obviously a couple but not talked about as like a couple the most in pop culture?
Like Fred and Daphne, you mean?
Fred and Daphne. Yeah, did I say Fred and Velma?
Yeah.
What a lovely beard. Because Fred is a little bit of a homosexual. Let's be very clear. That man wears an ascot.
Fred is my asexual king. That man only thinks of traps, and I love it.
Oh yeah, there was a joke early on. He's like, "You had a net already?" And he's like, "Yeah, it's my emergency net." Or whatever.
And they're like, "Do you sleep with a net?" And I'm like, "King, right here. This man has one special interest, and if you are not a booby trap, he does not care. I love him."
I mean, booby traps.
But I guess it is like
who are other famous like couples of this nature in the pop culture lexicon?
I don't know. I think too often they do just wind up getting paired up.
Yeah.
I mean, it also doesn't help that you go to the live action Scooby-Doo and Freddie Prinze Jr. and Sarah Michelle Gellar are married.
Latino king Freddie Prinze Jr.
It's like you go to the live action and the Fred and Daphne are actually married. So.
And his name is Fred.
Yeah, his name actually is Fred.
Yeah. Oh, shout out to Matthew Lillard, who was the voice of Shaggy in this movie.
Yes.
We also have they attack in the middle of the night. Um, Very confusing because they don't usually attack the like gang when they're in their sleeping quarters.
That was one thing I noticed, and I actually really did like about this movie is there was great action.
Yes, I love that.
And like actually felt like there was like stakes and drama. Like in this scene, the Phantom is coming at them. I want to know which of the Phantoms was the one who was like, "Okay, let me pick up the cleaver and just start hacking at Shaggy and Scooby," because that is hardcore at a level that you don't usually see.
You don't usually see it, yeah, and I was here for it. Like I think the Scooby-Doo chase sequences, I also thought that's I think part of it that I was like feeling like a kid again. Like, and later we'll get to the exploration. The fact that it was a whole sewer system, it was taking me back to like when they're exploring the volcano in Aloha Scooby-Doo, and it's like the like side quests where they're like, oh, they're exploring this terrain that they're not familiar with. I like that. Well, we do the mic check, and basically we establish that Chrissy, Fred, and Daphne and Emma are the only ones left.
Yeah, because the Phantom messes with it so much, everyone else is like, "I'm leaving."
Yeah, the Houdini's foot catches on fire. We have the Girlosaurus Rex, their guitars all break. How do we think the Waldo jokes aged well? Or were they fine from a 2024 lens? Obviously, you and I aren't part of the community, but
Yeah, I don't know.
yeah. I don't know. I was just like, I would probably not go with these jokes if I were the writer, but at the end of the day, I don't think they were. There's been more offensive stuff in Scooby-Doo stuff in the past.
I think it was nuanced enough by the, having the girls actually having the punk band think he was cute and like hot and like be into him that way, which you don't normally see. What we're talking about, if you haven't seen the movie, is there's a character, Waldo, who is a person with dwarfism. And there are like a couple jokes maybe at that expense, but there's also he gets to do things that aren't about that. So I think it's kind of a nuanced portrayal. I don't know. Get in the comments if you are also a person with dwarfism. But
yeah, we're not of the community, but I was just like, this was better than past Scooby-Doo stuff has been. But also, I think it was they weren't like making jokes at his expense for the most part. I don't recall. It was like, oh, they were fighting over who got to be with him because they all found him super sexy.
Yeah. Also is, and I cannot state this enough, in 2 scenes of this movie.
Valid. Yeah.
So there is also like, well, there's not enough there to really call it like a good portrayal, but there also wasn't enough there to really say it was bad. So a bit of a wash. He is not one of the characters who winds up being the Phantom. So, hey, we got away from having a physically disabled person being a villain, which is great.
Yeah, I love that.
Can't do that.
Valid. My one other concern was like, how old are these girls?
Yeah, that's the general thing.
Yeah. But anyways,
that's also the issue too with kind of Scooby-Doo in general.
Because are they teenagers or are they like our age?
Yeah, it's like, how old are they? Because the punk girls seemed about the same age as the Scooby Gang, which is a weird nebulous place where they could be 16 and they could be 25.
Yeah. I always like to interpret it, the fact that they're going around the world solving mysteries. They are supposedly making money off of this or have disposable income to go to these places. I mean, also Daphne and Fred are both rich. So I don't know. I always assumed they were like more 20-year-olds at the very least. But I still see them as older than me, even though like objectively they might be my age at best now.
Yeah, I did think about it, and because after we do our rundown, maybe I'll pitch you my Scooby version of Phantom of the Opera.
I love it. Yes.
But I did think about it, and I'm like, I think the only times we ever see the Scooby Gang involved in any sort of schooling, it is pretty affirmatively college.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't think it's ever seen them. Yeah, if it's not a flashback, I don't think we have ever seen them like in the main timeline of the thing in like high school.
Yeah,
I think we've seen them.
They give like post-grad students.
Yeah, it's like if we've ever seen them in school, it is in college. So they are like at youngest like 22. So I'm like, okay, they're fine. Romance stuff. It's not like aggressively creepy.
This is my favorite scene in the movie where we get Chrissy singing, and I literally, so she starts singing "Stay Away from My Man." I was like, oh, what? And then she says "Home Record," and I audibly laughed. I was like, what? And then this was giving a reference that I don't know if you will understand, Matt, but this was giving Rachel Riley from Big Brother, who literally has a quote that is, "Nobody gets in between me and my man." So I feel like I have a couple weeks to throw together a TikTok with this song in the background and Rachel Riley clips. So that's what I'm going to do with my free time. If you see me in the break room at work, mind your business, people. But then we also get Blake and Jones, who sing another song. The music in this movie, like, wasn't bad, I will say.
No, yeah.
And then we also get Emma, who's a violinist. She's the only one who has like talent in the musical realm that isn't singing of the.
And they dropped the ball a little bit because that violin music, I clocked, it's just actual violin music that exists. It's not original, which is fine. But it also is like, okay, you went to the trouble of doing.
They didn't hire Lindsay Sterling for this.
You didn't really hire a composer, I see. Okay.
Based on these three performances alone, who would you vote for?
Probably Emma, honestly.
Emma has the personality to go with it, but performance-wise, I was here for Chrissy and her mess. It was giving Angelica Pickles.
Chrissy's iconic, but just genuinely, I'm like, I think that was the most talented.
Ariel Winter went for those runs, though. Oh, we didn't talk about how she's the voice of Chrissy. Ariel Winter from Modern Family. She went for those notes, and
that's like, actually cute. I love that.
Yeah.
Come on, Haley. Or is it the other daughter?
No, she's Alex.
Alex, come on, Alex.
Oh my God! Now I need Sarah Hyland in the Scooby-Doo Cinematic Universe.
Sarah Hyland, right?
Married to Wells from The Bachelor, which we don't need to do a deep dive on the reality television connections, but
this is not a Bachelor podcast.
But to tie back to puppets, he had puppets on Bachelor in Paradise.
I'm leaving.
Yeah. So then we have Daphne and Fred decide to be bait, so they hide in their dressing room, and then they find a little like hole in the wall that leads to the sewer system that they go walking down, and then dun, dun, we have Matt's probably favorite scene of the movie.
No. Well, no, I actually had I have a lot of problems with the twist, actually. Because again, I feel just like having, I don't know, it felt so weird. It felt very much like they wanted to do a twist villain. So what happens here is like they go through the sewers, which is very Phantom of the Opera. Literally in the musical, in the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical, this is the song called The Phantom of the Opera. This is the one you're all hearing in your head right now. I'm going through the sewer to the Phantom's lair. And, you know, we meet the actual Phantom. Turns out there is a real Phantom who's been haunting it, but it's just this guy who's been living down here by himself. And he thinks he's deformed because the one mirror he's ever had to look at is like a funhouse mirror. Which is like, it's a funny comedic take, but we also reveal he's not the one who's been causing all the problems. And
yeah, I did like later when there's the red splotches on the mirror and it's paint, and whoever was like, "Have you never seen a real mirror?"
And he's like, "I lived underground for 40 years," and I'm like, "That's valid."
Valid.
It was fun. My problem with the twist is just I feel like the writers were like trying to get ahead of themselves. It's like it felt like the writers were like, we want to do a twist villain. But every twist they came up with, they felt it was too like obvious or too cliched. And so they're like, well, if we put all of them in, then it's not cliched. And I just am never a fan of when writers try to outsmart their audience.
It do be annoying.
Especially in a mystery, and especially like it's a Scooby-Doo movie. It's for kids. Like if the writer, if the audience can piece together your mystery, that's the sign of a good mystery. That means it's logical. You know, so having it where it's like, I where I was like, I think it could be like 3 or 4 people, and I don't know why, because I'm not kind of confused as to what's going on. And then it turns out, oh, the answer is it is 5 people. You know.
Yeah.
You can only get away with that. I said this on a podcast, another podcast I just recorded. It's like, you can get away with that if it's an Agatha Christie and they're all stabbing him.
Shout out to Agatha all along, though. I'm very hyped. WandaVision is... You didn't watch it? I know you fell off after...
No, I love WandaVision, and I'm so excited for Agatha.
I'm very excited, but I'm also kind of nervous because I'm scared.
Now, here's the thing. I'm not, because if people don't like that, it's okay, because I think this was made just for me, and so I'm going to love it.
Gay witches?
You got the little guy from Heartstopper. You got Catherine.
Are you a Heartstopper girly?
You got me Patti LuPone. I actually have not seen Heartstopper. I've seen bits of Heartstopper, not the full thing.
Okay.
So
anyway,
you got Patti LuPone in the Marvel Universe as a witch.
So Sashir Zameda as like a main Marvel character. Like,
yes! It's like, oh, this cast.
Did you see that Sashir came out this week?
No, I didn't.
Sashir came out as a lesbian.
Good for her.
I love Sashir. One of my all-time favorite SNL sketches was when she's Janelle, the YouTuber, and Chris Rock is her dad, and she's like a 15-year-old dancer, and she's like, then Chris Rock is reading the comments, and it's like pervy men saying things about his teenage daughter, and she's like, but I just want to do the lawnmower, and it's like that's a great sketch. I'll send it to you.
Great. Sashir is great.
I love her and Nicole together, best friends. Go shout that out.
That's the third podcast. After you listen to this one, and after you go listen to my podcast, go listen to Best Friends.
Yes. Actually, go listen to all of our content combined first. Everything we have ever done on a podcast. And then go listen to everything Sashir and Nicole have done together. And then go listen to Newcomers with Nicole Byer and Lauren Lapkus. That's our order of hierarchy.
Yes. And by the way, they've not paid us for any of that.
No, we're just big fanboys.
We think it's cool. You should listen to it.
I had one more thing to say, but I forget. Oh, have you watched The English Teacher on Hulu?
I have not, which I need to start because I love Brian Jordan Alvarez.
Okay. Well, I was going to say Trixie Mattel is in an episode, and I was like, speaking of like things that overlap within our interests. There's only 3 episodes out so far. And I like it. We love a white passing Latino. Anyways, we met Steve Trilby, who was a fun little side character. I will say, like, that was also kind of where the movie kind of started to lose me. That's where I took a break from watching. And then the third act is right around this time, and I'm like, oh, this is kind of where we lose the plot a little bit. Because that's where my like enjoyment kind of phased out of childhood nostalgia to like, okay, let's try to guess who this culprit is. And then all the shenanigans happen, and I was like, oh boy. So we get the he basically he was upset that they vandalized the opera house into a discotheque. And then we find out that there's a new Phantom who is Mel Richmond. And he literally says it's for insurance, which previously in the movie, he made a joke that like, oh, what if I was the Phantom for insurance purposes? Which in Scooby-Doo, it's often insurance purposes.
Yeah. That is the thing. It's like, it found like I think that is also part of it, whereas like every fake Phantom's motivation we find out over this third act is like the most cliched Scooby-Doo villain.
Yeah, I feel like it's always corporate greed or like personal gain and success. Like capitalism is 90% of the problem in Scooby-Doo movies.
And it was that four out of 4 times. And I was like, really? Okay.
Then they decide to use Emma as bait, which I'm like, this is a child. I hope you got permission from her parents.
Her lovely sainted parents who are like, we put all our money in this. We're hoping we don't lose the farm.
Oh, Marge.
They're the peak Midwesterner, and they
are in Chicago.
There was a very fun scene where it's Daphne and Fred are talking to Emma's parents backstage, and they're like, oh, so what are you going to use the money for? And they're like, we're going to use it to bail us out of the banks and, so we don't lose our farm and our livelihood. What are you going to do if you win? And they're so nice. And Daphne and Fred are like, oh, buy things. That was cute.
Well, that's also kind of why I like early on, I was like, oh, this is motivation. Like they're not bad people because we see that they're good. They're not presented as morally corrupt individuals, so that's why I thought early on they might be the culprits. because they have the motivation. I always love to guess the motivation. And then when it's like something like completely chaotic, I'm like, oh, okay. I had no shot.
Sure.
So yeah, and then we also get another one of these arrested. The last 30 minutes of the movie are all kind of like mished together. That's not a word, right? Mish.
It's fine.
It's giving Hannah Montana, mix it all together, and you got the best of both worlds. You never said what your was it Scooby-Doo episodes in general, like any classic episodes of Halloween stuff you like to consume?
Just I go back and watching it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, so Christy's dad, Lance, gets pulled. And then Dewey's being awfully suspicious, and Shaggy and Scooby are hiding from the security guard. We didn't talk about the security guard and the dogs, like how many times they get away, and like Scooby has the old man get up. Scooby behind the base.
Because it so often happens in a Scooby-Doo movie, like what Scooby and Shaggy are doing matters not at all.
But it's also like Scooby is in a lot of places that up until recently dogs were not allowed in. Mm-hmm. And still to this day, I feel like only service dogs are. So it's like kind of funny, like what the fuck is this dog doing here in the first place? Yes. Like I think it's hilarious, but
that's part of the world. It's like he talks. That is also the funny thing is this is a world where, as far as we know, Scooby's the only talking dog, and yet
Scrappy.
Oh, they're Scrappy too.
Yeah, but those two, yeah.
But it is one of those where it's like there's a running side gag where Scooby and Shaggy keep trying to like get the talent host to like let them on the show in the finals, and it's like they keep doing these bad talents when it's like you're not just gonna go with the fact that the dog can talk, like claim that as a ventriloquism artist or something.
The silliness, Matthew.
Yes.
And then, so then when they finally escape from the security guard, they drop down. Dewey's being awfully sus. Not Dewey, Brick. Brick is being awfully sus. He's like holding the door behind him to the sound room. And Velma's like, huh. And then she goes in, does her doohickeys in there. We find out later that they looped it so that the Phantom gets away with it. But as Scooby and Shaggy have another run-in with the security guard, Dewey walks by them and is hand sanitizing his hands. And then he's like, it smells like lemon. And they're like, lemon? And then they chase after him. And he has the soap diamond. Because he's trying to collect the 3 clean-related jewels or whatever.
Sure. Hey, you got a special interest. It's fine.
Hey, we love cleanliness. But they chase after him. They end up like on this bridge.
Yes, on like a drawbridge, essentially, like dangling. Again, the action in this is really great.
And they also have like some fun like car stuff in the scene, like the car chase, driving through the streets of Chicago. And then Fred gets him to fall into a garbage boat. Like,
we'll say it was weird how, like garbage barge, and then he gets picked up by the cop, which, by the way, another weird thing in the back half of this movie is out of nowhere, the big heroes are the Chicago Police Department.
Yes, and there's a Chicago police sergeant or whoever who's like, I have $50, you're going to win this on Fred and Daphne.
We love it.
And then, it was just weird. I did appreciate the fact that, like, even though the guy has, like, undiagnosed OCD, there was no joke about him being, like, on a garbage barge and, like, being unclean in that sense. It was just like, oh, his diamond. Like, I felt like they could have, like, punched down on that, and I did appreciate that. As someone with OCD is like, I would be definitely uncomfortable on this garbage barge, but we don't have to like poke at my trauma. And thank you, Scooby-Doo, for not doing that.
Yeah. Thanks.
The cops pick the gang up. They're like, oh, we'll get you to the finale. And it's Chrissy versus Emma and versus Daphne and Blake.
No, this was after. So they'd already Chrissy had already lost.
Yeah, Chrissy was eliminated.
They were at a tiebreaker, which also like means the finale was supposed to be like a top 6, and then it goes to a top 3. Sure.
Well, it's also like, can't you just have everyone who voted for Chrissy revote?
No, you can't at all. They have to do a tiebreaker.
Yeah. So then Emma goes again with a different song. And then Daphne's like, well, I did write words to the song that you wrote, and it's a love song. And then they pull a Finn and Rachel at regionals in season 2 of Glee when they go to New York, and they sing Pretending. And then they kiss. And that's very much Daphne and Fred in this moment. They go past Emma in the poll numbers. But Daphne and Fred both feel sad because they see Emma getting sad. So Daphne starts telling jokes about dogs, and it's like, what do you call a dog who doesn't eat its vegetables or whatever? A cauliflower. What was the other one? Oh, what kind of food does a bone does a dog never eat? A trombone.
And it's because these are like bad jokes that Shaggy and Scooby were telling to try and get on the show. And so now it's a fun callback, but it is very silly when I'm like, girl, take the glory and give them the money. Like, you didn't have to do all this.
But then my big thing with this was I found it frustrating that the numbers went down when I would have rather Emma's numbers just went up in that moment. Why did they have to do the whole like the numbers were going down? I was like, huh? You know, she could just like, I don't think that's how it works. Once the votes are cast, the votes are cast.
Yeah. They're uncasting their votes. That's not how that works.
We also wait.
Was this like a text vote? Is this like American Idol?
And yes, I was going to ask if you had any controversial American Idol takes on this podcast.
They're going, never mind, actually.
Yeah. Do you have any controversial American Idol opinions or any favorite American Idol contestants over the years? My biggest hot take, while you think of yours, Cara Dierguardi was the best judge on American Idol.
I have very great. My hot take is I think I have maybe seen one episode of American Idol.
Matthew. We're going to put American Idol on the break room.
Please don't. These were just not, but we both love reality TV. We watched opposite reality TV is the thing.
You were watching like Project Runway and American Next Top Model. And
I was an Amazing Race girly, first and
foremost. You were?
Yeah.
How did I not know this? So I was going to say,
that's why I'm not a Survivor kid.
I was literally going to tell you, you should watch Amazing Race Season 5, the best season of Amazing Race ever, with Charlotte and Myrna and Colin and Christy. And
that was the first season of Amazing Race I watched.
That season is cinema.
I love Amazing Race.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna convert you into Survivor fan also. But we'll try.
Spoilers for the podcast.
Yes. We also have the cop who's mad at them later. And then we also get the big finale is Bricks on the TV. And we see the video of him being the Phantom of the Opera and they arrest him. And then Steve Trilby is like, he does his little announcer thing at the end.
And host, so it's cool.
And the guy in the camera room is like, oh, he was good. Yeah, I also liked at the start of the film when Scooby and Shaggy are like, oh, we're going to impress the judge. He's going to be a juggler. And then he's like, anything but juggling. And then they're like, oh, that was like a subplot throughout the movie, them trying to impress the talent booker Brick. But yeah, Brick is arrested, Dewey's arrested, and we save the day. And what did you think of the movie overall before we talk about the credits scene?
Overall, I just thought it was fine. I felt it was, I said it earlier. I think the category is for this one is just like missed opportunities. I felt there were ways it could have been tied in a little bit more. We could have had its setting feel more real. We could have played more with either the reality show element or the like Phantom of the Opera moment. It felt like there were a lot of ideas being thrown around, and this movie really needed someone to say like no to one of them. I felt like they took every idea and tried to put it in, and there were great moments. They were really good moments, but there was a lot where it was just like, okay, sure, here we are. So ultimately, not my fave of the two we've seen. Not my fave. But not like awful. Like if you put this on Halloween, you're not gonna have a bad time.
Yeah, it's a good time for me. We also get the post-credits crush where Daphne's like, oh, I like Fred, and Velma's annoying, and then Shaggy's like, just talk to her, when Fred says the same thing, and they're about to talk, and then Velma's like, oh, but the Goose Lake ghost, and then I'm like, Velma, what the hell? That's when she got my LVP in that moment, because I'm like, Velma, you're telling her to talk to him, and then you interrupt them because you don't want to make your friendship road trip uncomfortable. Boo, tomato, tomato. So just to echo what you said, though, I had a great time watching this movie. It's a good background movie. Especially the second act is pretty fun. But anything else you want to add about the credit scene that I kind of just glossed over right there?
No, it was very quick.
Yeah. All right, should we get into the culprit game, Matt? Who did you think was going to be the villain of the movie while you were watching it?
Who did I think? I think I was linked pretty hard into Brick, the kind of host of the show. It was setting it up pretty obviously. It's like ratings are going bad, and it's like that's a very obvious plot. It's like, oh, we're in this haunted thing. Let's lean into it.
All right,
but it was screwed over by a lot of like this character needs to win, and then there was also a lot of stuff going on. So,
all right. So I said Mr. and Mrs. Gale was my final guess. Now I know I don't get a point. Now I want to ask you, do you get a point for that, or do you get a half point because it was technically both Dewey and Brick, or would each of them have been one separate point?
I think I should get a point just because I don't know if anyone would have guessed the actual answer, which was literally surprise 5 people were the Phantom.
All right, so now it means that I am winning only by a half point against the guests, 30 to 29.5, because I got this wrong. But maybe I have a chance to get my points up in the near future when we go on to some of these other, like Scooby-Doo and the Spooky Scarecrow. In terms of the MVPs and LVPs, Matt, do you want to go first or should I?
You go first because you already said your LVP.
Okay, my LVP was Velma, and then my MVP was Daphne because she was the one with the big heart at the end of the movie. I felt like it was her decision to tank it for Emma. Obviously, she could have just slid the money under the table to Emma and her family, but I felt like Daphne felt like more of the heart of the movie. Like she had the most three-dimensional story versus Scooby and Shaggy were just like being buffoons in the background, which we love. Fred didn't really have a purpose, and then Velma was just like kind of whiny and in a bad mood. And Velma's kind of been on something in the last few movies because she's gotten my last 3 LVP points. But so Daphne gets my MVP, Velma gets my LVP. I don't know if I just said Daphne gets the positive, Velma gets the negative. And what about you, Matt? Where do you have your points going to?
Does it have to be the main Scooby gang? It's been a while.
You can give a bonus MVP and bonus LVP to someone outside of the core 5.
Okay.
But in terms of the MVP, I do love the data of finding out.
Gotcha. We'll keep it to there. I agree with you, MVP. You know, Daphne was definitely like the protagonist of this the most, as in driving things forward. And yeah, I really liked that, she did make that decision to not just like, because she could have just been like, we'll take the trophy and we'll give, the Emma and her family the money to save them out. That would have been great. But she also was like, no, we'll give them the spotlight as well. We'll give them this moment of fame as well. Mm-hmm. So that was really cool. LVP, I'll give bonus MVP to the poor PA who deserved better on all of this. And I hope she's fully directing that show like the Navy. LVP.
Feel free to talk it out.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like it's between Shaggy and Scooby for me. Just because they did so little. And they could have truly, like, you could have written those 2 out of this movie and nothing would have changed.
Hey, they did realize that he smelled like lemons.
True, that is the one. That is the one thing they managed to get. So I'll do that. But just generally, you know what? I will give it to Shaggy. Because Velma asked them to do literally one thing, which is go to the library. And Shaggy was like, all right, going to the library. Immediately beelines to a pizza parlor.
Valid. But it's okay. She has giggles, so she can.
Yeah, now it's like, why are you going to a library? You clearly have the internet.
Mm-hmm. All right. So with that, we have Daphne getting 2 MVPs, Velma getting 1 LVP, and Shaggy getting 1 as well. Scooby still is the leader of the clubhouse for MVP with 25. Velma close behind with 21. Shaggy with 17. Daphne with 15. Fred with 5, and Scrappy with 3. The
Not
LVP
Fred with 5. Jeez. I mean,
And
I'm not surprised.
I think they are all from me, possibly. No, there's one from a guest.
I'm not surprised, but jeez.
I'm trying to see who's the one guest that get Fred a positive. Lisa gave him one. LVP total, we have Fred with 30, Shaggy in second with 20, Velma with 16, Daphne with 9, Scooby with 6, and Scrappy with 5. Scrappy would have a lot more if he was eligible more often.
Yeah.
But with that, we have finished the MVPs and LVPs. All we got to do left, Matt, is the scores. Now, we give these 0.25 to 5 Scooby Snacks per episode. You cannot give it a 0. The lowest you can give is a 0.25. Do you want to go first, Matt, or shall I?
You go first.
All right. I gave this... So I was looking at the recent things, and I gave Mask of the Blue Fountain a 4.25. Now, as we established on the puppet one, where objectively I gave it a 4, but on Letterboxd I gave it like a 2 or a 2.5. My Letterboxd scores do not equate my Scooby-Doo ranking scores. So even though I gave this a 4 on Letterboxd, it's going to go higher on the Scooby-Doo with a 4.25 because it just made me feel like a kid again. And obviously, the plot, we can poke all the holes in that plot as we like. There's more holes in that plot than Fred's net. So we don't look at this for the plot. The vibes of the movie, the second act, immaculate. First and third act were a little weaker. But the second act, I felt like I was a kid on a Saturday afternoon, enjoying Saturday afternoon cartoons, experiencing the Scooby-Doo movie for the first time. And it took me back to that. So that's why I'm giving it a 4.25. I don't feel comfortable going higher. Matthew, where are you putting this?
See, that's the problem, is it's like, I want to be cantankerous. I want to, like, be all film criticism, film bro-y, but, like, it's a Scooby-Doo animated movie. I don't want to be that harsh on it.
For me, this is also not the highest I've ever given it. And this is all subject to the Scooby-Doo rating system, not the film rating system.
That said, I think I'm going to come down.
Do you want a reminder of what you gave the last one?
Actually, yes, it's been a while. What did I give Music of the Vampire?
So I gave Music of the Vampire 3, and you gave it a 2.5.
Oh, Jesus.
And I believe you said that one was better.
Yes, and I'm immediately like, maybe like a 3.25 for this. I'm like, geez. Oh, it's been a while since I've been on this podcast. Did I maybe just hate Music of the Vampire more than
I think maybe you should have re-listened to that one before you hopped on.
Maybe I should have. Geez. Okay. Well, now I'm gonna.
I mean, you can rate that one higher if you'd like.
I'm gonna stick to my guns. I guess I'm not gonna go back to that other one because I wouldn't rewatch the movie. Yeah. Ignore what I said about the last one being better, because in my heart, I would feel weird to give it less than a 3. This one, less than a 3, which is so weird.
So is that a rating? Is it 3? Is it 3.25? Is it 3?
Yes, it's gonna be a 3 out of 5.
A 3, a solid 3.
Solid 3. Wow, that's wild.
It's very interesting.
Nothing. I like Music of the Vampire more.
Nothing has changed otherwise. We still have the top one with a 4.625, Scooby-Doo and the Goblet King. Will it ever be dethroned? And then the minimum, the worst one is Scooby-Doo and Arabian Nights. So that is the last one that we have. Will that ever be dethroned? I don't think so, because Kate really hated that one. And I didn't give it much higher either. Because also, that one's not really a Scooby-Doo movie. That one is like 20, at most, 15 to 20 minutes of Scooby and Shaggy, 40 minutes of Aladdin, gender-swapped Aladdin, and then 40 minutes of Magilla Gorilla just going on an adventure.
Wait, what?
And it also has a lot of problematic jokes about Middle Eastern people.
Yeah.
So, so that one, cracked. Very cracked.
Oh, is that an older one? Is that Casey?
That's like from the 91 or something.
Is it still Casey Kasem as Shaggy?
Yes, definitely. I assume it's from 1994.
That's so sad. He had to deal with so many like problematic Arabian stereotypes.
Yeah,
like being in these movies and never having to play them, but that also just has to suck.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you're the one normal character because you're voicing the white person, and meanwhile everyone who actually looks like you.
I don't know if he was in this one. Let me look at it. Let me see if he's in this one. Television movie. He probably was, I'd assume.
Well,
right?
like I know he had
Was
to deal with like a lot of BS with Transformers.
Uh-huh. Oh, I assume so. Scooby-Doo. I will look this up. Oh, yep, he was in this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Casey Kasem, much respect. I don't think he's still alive.
Rest in peace, King.
But, yeah,
No,
yeah.
he's not.
Yeah.
That's why Matthew Lillard is his voice now.
Oh, true. Yeah.
Or at least was. I don't know what the current situation is.
I think
But,
he still is.
well, I know he was upset about Scoob. Yeah.
Who wasn't?
I haven't seen it. I'm excited to see that one because that's on my list. But Matt, anything else you have to say about Scooby-Doo Stage Fright?
Yeah, real quick, I'm gonna plug or not plug. I'm gonna pitch you how I think
please.
Scooby-Doo could actually do a Phantom of the Opera adaptation.
I want to hear this.
How I think the plot of this could have been better. I'm gonna keep a little of the reality show framing, but I'm gonna lean harder into the Phantom stuff because again, the basic plot of Phantom of the Opera is there's this incredible like singer who came out of nowhere, and it's like, where is she come from? And it's like, oh, my teacher is the like scary, creepy guy who lives in the opera house who's in love with me and is like really weird and violent and wants me to do well. And like, I think you could really easily do that. So I'd keep kind of the talent show framing. I'd be like, everyone's going, but it's like just Daphne is the singer, say.
Mm-hmm.
She's the one talent, and everyone's like, wow, Daphne, like you like got really well. Like you barely made it through the auditions, but like you did really well. How have you done it? She's like, I had a great teacher. And it's, maybe this guy she found on the internet or something who like texted her and is like, you have promise, I can, teach you, and has been doing singing lessons with him. And so they're going in for the finale, and there's all the other characters. You have that sort of thing. And then in her dressing room, and you set up, it's like, oh, there's rumors this opera house is haunted. There's a ghost. Ooh. And then here it's like, oh, there's like, this creepy phantom there who like visits her in her dressing room and is like seducing her. It's like, you can be amazing. You can win this. All you have to do is do everything I say and come with me. And then you could have that like put a wedge between like her and Fred. And then you have like Fred, you have Fred being like jealous and like, this isn't real, whatever. And meanwhile, Velma and Shaggy and Scooby are the level-headed ones being like, this is weird, we need to investigate. And they just keep going down, and then it's unmasked. It's like the Phantom is the guy that Daphne has been, taking voice lessons from, who like become obsessed with her and has fallen in love with her. And it's this whole thing.
A mystical creature obsessed with Daphne, and they have music lessons. It's giving Music of the Vampire.
Music of the Vampire, yes. But that to be fair, I also didn't look. There's a decent chance I'm wearing this same shirt in that episode too, because that was also a little Phantom of the Opera.
Valid. Now I do have one very important question.
Sorry, I'm just like, I think if you leaned into the actual story, like it would lend itself really well to a Scooby-Doo.
Do you think Scooby-Doo should pastiche more musical theater, like Beauty and the Beast Scooby-Doo episode? We have Mary Poppins Scooby-Doo episode, Sweeney Todd, Lion King, Little Shop of Horrors.
Not necessarily musical theater, but although like a Little Shop or a Sweeney Todd would be great. But
you don't want to see Scooby-Doo shucked?
But I genuinely think actually Scooby-Doo could lean into doing adaptations more.
I agree. Yeah.
I think
Scooby-Doo. Well, I mean, there was the last one I talked about that's released currently, The Mask of the Blue Falcon, is basically Scooby-Doo goes to Comic-Con, and it's basically like Adam West Batman is upset that he's overshadowed by the Christian Bale Batman. So I feel like that's like commentary on the media landscape, and I feel like
Scooby-Doo doing like a Sherlock Holmes riff, Scooby-Doo doing like Agatha Christie myths,
doing Agatha all along.
Yeah, but like I actually think like Scooby-Doo, and not just obvious mystery stuff, but I think Scooby-Doo could actually like lean into doing adaptations.
You know what's really good at what show is really good at doing that? Phineas and Ferb.
Yes.
I do have one very important question about your version of Scooby-Doo Phantom of the Opera.
Yes.
In what sequence are we getting Stay Away From My Man, Homewrecker?
That's what we have Chrissy be the actual Carlotta of this. We don't have Lotta, as much as I love her. That's her big number. She's the one everyone's gonna win. She's the one everyone's fated to win because she's an amazing singer with the #1 smash hit of the summer. Espresso Fu, I don't know her.
I mean, I think we should start instead of R.I.P. Brat Summer, Rise Homewrecker Fall.
Homewrecker Fall.
With that, Matthew, where can the good people of the Brazilian Dragon podcast keep up with you and everything you're doing? Anything you want to plug? Anything else you want to share about anything Scooby-Doo related? And what can you tell us about the upcoming season of You Haven't Seen This? ?
Yes. Okay. So where you can find me, M Pinkney Writer. It's letter M, my last name Writer, on Twitter and Blue Sky. Please follow me on Blue Sky so I don't have to be on Twitter anymore.
Are you on Threads?
No.
No.
I don't need to give.
Get on Blue Sky.
I don't need to give Mark Zuckerberg any more in my life.
Valid.
So follow You Haven't Seen This on Twitter. You Haven't Seen _ and Instagram. You Haven't Seen This. And also listen to us on Spotify. The new season's coming along well.
Yes, Mama.
We've recorded a couple episodes and we have some interesting ideas. I am realizing eagle-eyed viewers probably can't because my lighting is bad, but there's a couple.
It says podcast. I
thought
you were talking about me, so I was
no spoilers, no spoilers.
I think I can make one of them out. Oh, stop! You keep talking.
No spoilers. And the big one that you should definitely check out is I wrote a short animated film with my friends that is out now on YouTube and has been doing amazing. We released it 2 weeks ago. You were fully just trying to read.
Blue Samurai. Sorry, Samurai Blue.
Yes. We just released it 2 weeks ago. It's blown up. We're already at over 100,000 views, and I am so excited. Yes. So check that out. You can look it up. It's Samurai Blue After Image on YouTube. Look at that. Also follow us on Instagram and Twitter. You can find us at afterimage_en. It's afterimage_en. Put it somewhere in the titles on this. Yeah. Go watch that. We also just released the really great song for it. That has released its own track. So, Stream Drive with Heart and all of that. All of the links are going to be, if you catch one link out of the 500 things I've said, you'll be able to.
I'm going to text you and you're going to send me all the links closer to when I drop this episode, and then I will put it in the show notes.
Yes. But definitely go check that out. It's Samurai Blue was a labor of love. The fact that so many people are in love with it is just a dream come true to me, and I'm so excited for more.
We love that. In terms of me, you can follow everything I'm doing at the Brazilian Dragon on Instagram. You can check out the feed for the Brazilian Dragon podcast, as well as all the sub feeds. Go subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And while you're there, go leave the Brazilian Dragon podcast and You Haven't Seen This 5 stars on Apple Podcast and a good rating and review. It helps more people find these shows, and it helps more people listen to our shenanigans. And who knows what that could bring us opportunity-wise, but we would love and appreciate you for doing that. You can also check out the Brazilian Dragon podcast YouTube channel and subscribe there. Like and subscribe to stay updated to everything we're doing. Episode 200 is coming around the corner, as is our big October event, the Brazilian Dragontober special, Scooby Tuesdays, and then a fun little movie on Thursdays, Halloween related, and then a Halloween episode of some of your favorite childhood shows. Up this week includes the That's So Raven episode with the aforementioned AJ Norris, where we talk about Don't Have a Cow, the episode where Raven and Chelsea turn into cows. And go to Alana's birthday party because Chelsea eats a burger accidentally when she's a vegetarian. So stay tuned for that. That will be on the Brazilian Dragon podcast. Lastly, this is a labor of love, as is a lot of the stuff that some of us are doing out here in these streets, because the economy is not great. But if you want to support in any financial way, we do have a new Patreon, Brazilian Dragon Productions. If you want to support, I would be very grateful if you are interested in that. Again, if you cannot at this time, I understand. how you can help us grow is by liking, subscribing on all podcasts and YouTube platforms, and also those 5-star reviews from me. And go give one to Matt and his sister as well, because they're doing silly things over there. We're just out here hustling, and with so much passion behind us, we got that dog in us. Anything else, Matt? Yeah. Oh, also follow me on Twitter at my main at @WhatTheFleep, and let me get on this Blue Sky because Elon be trash.
Yes, I'll send you. I think I have an invite link if you haven't got. I'll
Cool.
send you.
If you've got to the end of this podcast, you should hashtag Scooby Phantom at me and Matt. And until next time, everybody, let's hop into the mystery machine and head on to our next destination, Scooby-Doo and the Spooky Scarecrow. Thank you for listening. Happy Brazilian Dragontober. Obrigado for listening. Bye.
Bye.